Hello, it's your favorite teacher here. The purpose of today's lesson is you will be able to show that a number and its opposite have a sum of 0 when using visuals, symbols, words, and real-world contexts. You will be able to use the term additive inverse to describe two numbers whose sum is 0, and you'll be able to describe situations where opposite quantities combine to make 0. In this video, when we talk about counting up, it's going to correspond with positive numbers. And if we're talking about counting down, that's going to refer to negative numbers. And I'm going to use the number line down here to show that. So when using the number line, you always begin at 0. So if it asks us to count up 5, remember that's a positive integer, so we want to go up 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it represents the integer 5. Now count down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When counting down, that represents a negative number, so the integer that would represent would be negative 5. And where did we end up? We ended up on 0. In math, 5 and negative 5 are called opposites. An opposite is an integer that is the same distance from 0, but on the opposite side of 0. So I'm going to use the number line again to demonstrate that. The opposite of 4. So we're going to start on 0, count up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's 4. And remember, the opposite is the same distance from 0, but in the other direction. So because we went right, we're going to go left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, same distance from 0. So the opposite of 4 would be negative 4. The opposite of negative 10. Negative 10 would be 10 units to the left of 0. So 10 units to the right of 0 would be positive 10. So that would be its opposite. Opposites will always have a sum of 0, and we proved that with our 5 and negative 5. When we counted up 5 and then counted down 5, so opposites, we ended up on 0. Another way to say that in math is the additive inverse. And if we were to break down the word additive inverse, additive means to add, inverse means opposites, so positive and negative of the same number, and we will always get 0. On the next page, you're going to try an example on your own. So go ahead and pause the video and try that one. Let's see how you did. So this time it asked us to count down 3 first. And remember, we always start on 0, so counting down 3, 1, 2, 3. Down represents negative, so that would be a negative 3. Count up 3, 1, 2, 3. Counting up is positive, so that would represent a positive 3. And we ended up on 0 again. And remember, the pair negative 3 and positive 3 are called opposites. And we just proved again that anytime you add opposites, negative 3, positive 3, they're the same distance from 0 on the number line, just in opposite directions, we got 0. And that's called additive, meaning adding together, inverse, meaning opposites. So when we add opposites, we will always get 0. How did you do? Awesome! In class, we're going to be playing an integer game with cards, so I'm going to give you a preview of that game. So below you see 4 different cards, 5, negative 5, negative 4, and 8. And this question's asking us, what is the value of the sum of the card values shown? And remember, sum in math means the answer to an addition problem. So it wants to know if we were to add these 4 cards up, what would be the sum? So we're going to use our visual or a number line down here to show that. And remember, when using a number line, we always start on 0. So our first card is a positive 5. And remember that we're going to count up when we have positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then our next card is a negative 5. Negative means count down. So now we're going to count down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We ended up on 0, which is perfect because remember opposites have a sum of 0. Now because we have a negative 4, we want to count down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're at negative 4. And then we have a positive 8, so we want to count up 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what was the final position on the number line? We ended up on 4. So that means that the sum of 5, negative 5, negative 4, and 8 would be 4. Go ahead and pause the video to answer the next question. What card or combinations of cards would you need to get back to 0? Let's see what you came up with. Because we have a sum of 4, if I was talking about just one card, the only way to get back to 0 is by adding its opposite or having its opposite card, which would be negative 4. So you might have come up with that example. But if you did a combination of cards, that means 2 or more cards, I would need a sum of negative 4. So you could have had negative 1 and negative 3, or another example would be negative 2 and negative 2. You might have had many other examples, and if you did, go ahead and share that with me in class tomorrow. Pause the video again and try the next section in your notes. Let's see how you did. Go ahead and compare your answers. And what I really want you to get out of this example is the purpose of the video, which remember there are 3 purposes. This example actually covered 2 of them. The first being that you can show that a number and its opposite have a sum of 0. And you did that right up here on the number line visual. You showed that if you count up 7, which represents a positive 7, and if we count down 7, which represents a negative 7, we ended up on 0. And the other thing I want you to take away from this example is that when we add opposites, we will always get 0. And to remember that it's called the additive inverse. In this last section, we're going to take what we learned from this video about opposites and additive inverse and apply it to the real world. So how would the value of negative 10 represent temperature? Well, in real life, that would be 10 degrees below 0. How would the temperature need to change in order to get back to 0 degrees? Well, if we're at negative 10, then it would need to rise 10 degrees. And then we'd end up back at 0 because negative 10 and positive 10 are opposites. And when we add opposites, we always have the sum of 0. This last example is going to give you the opportunity to describe a situation where opposite quantities combine to make 0. So go ahead and write a story problem that uses money to represent the expression 200 and negative 200. And then we'll share those in class. So now that you watch your video, ask yourself, can I show that a number and its opposite have a sum of 0? And remember, you can use the number line to do that. So if we're counting up to 1, 2, up represents a positive 2. And then if I were to count down to 1, 2, counting down represents a negative 2, I end up on 0. So the sum of 2 and negative 2 is 0. And then ask yourself, do you know that the term additive inverse is used to describe 2 numbers whose sum is 0? So that would be an example of this. We have 2 opposites, their sum is 0. So this is an example of additive inverse. Hopefully you're confident now with opposites and additive inverse. If not, then please come to class with questions tomorrow. Bye-bye.